Alright, good Sunday morning everyone. I'm BamChase.net meteorologist Joseph Cooper. I'm filling in for Michael Clark today. Let's go on over. We'll take a look here at your premium video. Really right now we're pretty quiet here across central Indiana. We're in the 20s. We're going to warm into the 40s today. If we take a look here, this is at water vapor satellite, and you can see we do have this water vapor imagery. This is all dry air here. If we take a look across the central portions of the United States, from Albuquerque to Oklahoma City, St. Louis to Cincinnati, and even us here in central Indiana. That's why we're clear. We have a lot of dry air in place. We really don't have any kind of a system to talk about. It's really out here to the west. This is going to be our system as we approach midweek here. That's going to move across the central plains, and eventually that will impact our weather here come late Tuesday into Wednesday. Taking a look at radar right now, you can see we're quiet across the majority of the nation. We do have some snow and even some rain here across the northwestern portions of the United States. Some strong thunderstorms out here over the Gulf. But really, we're quiet. This is a really quiet pattern that we're in. I shouldn't say pattern, but a quiet day that we're in right now. And that'll continue over the next couple of days. Tomorrow we're expecting, highs to warm into the 50s, probably even into the 60s as we get into Tuesday. And then, by Wednesday, we'll have a big change and temperatures will drop rapidly, and we'll have temperatures, into the 20s and 30s on Wednesday and the 20s on Thursday. So it's a spring-like pattern. We get these waves coming in, and we get these storms that are associated with them. So let's go over. We'll take a look at the forecast models because, that's what everybody wants to know about. They want to know about the storm coming up on Wednesday here. So here's as we get into Monday. This is the GFS model. Not really much going on. Here's that low pressure system that is out to the west. By Monday, it's sitting out across Wyoming. We have some snow and some rain associated with it out across the Pac Northwest. But we're still really quiet here as we get into Monday, into Tuesday across central Indiana. Now, as we get into the daytime hours on Tuesday, this low pressure system comes off the lee side of the Rockies, now coming out across the Great Plains. Here's your 540 line. So you're starting to get rain and snow out here across Nebraska, back out towards Wyoming, even northern Iowa, possibly getting in on some of the snow as it moves across the central plains. And then as we get into the daytime hours on Wednesday, I should say early morning hours on Wednesday, this low pressure system, starts to move our way. Now this low at this point is centered down across kind of the Virginias or maybe eastern Kentucky. We have the moisture that is wrapping around the low, and now we have this cold air that is starting to filter in. So that'll change any kind of moisture that we still have available over to snow. Now exactly how much snow is going to fall, that's kind of what we're looking at and what we're watching here, because it's still a little bit up in the air with different model runs here. But this will move out of here by the time we get into late Wednesday through Thursday, leaving behind this cold pouch of air, if you will. This is what's going to be here on Thursday before we finally see a warm-up coming on Friday. So, not a bad day tomorrow or Tuesday, but it's really Wednesday, Thursday time period that we start to watch. Now, look what happens. We'll kind of move through the week, and we'll go late in the period here. Here comes another storm. This is by the time we get into early next week. Another storm coming up through the central portion of the United States up to the Ohio Valley. Now, obviously, this is over a week out, so nothing etched in stone with this at all. But this would be a relatively large storm. You can see a large low-pressure system coming up off the East Coast, almost like a nor'easter type of situation, which if you take a look at the teleconnections at the NAO, it does start to dip. So it would support something like that, so not totally out of the question. Going on over to the 500 millibar patterns, you can see we almost get into almost a zonal flow. And what I mean by zonal flow is you have a flat jet stream from west coast to east coast. You don't really have any kind of troughs or ridges or anything like that. So you're very zonal. You have a very even, a very calm flow. But watch as we get into midweek. Here's this piece of energy coming off of into the west coast. This comes into the central portion of the United States. Now, notice here we have kind of this, kind of a positive to a neutral trough. And what I mean by that is anytime you get the trough axis pointing off to the southwest or straight to the south, you get a positive to a neutral trough. And this really isn't a trough that's really good for a big snow system. Does it mean we won't have snow No, that's not what it means at all. But you don't, anytime you have what we call a negative tilted trough, where the trough axis is pointing off to the southeast, you really kind of open the floodgates of moisture from the Gulf, and that will really help kind of induce some very heavy snowfall as it rides up over the cold air. But at this point, we don't have it. That doesn't mean it won't happen. I mean, we're still several days out. But in fact, as we watch this kind of push off to the east, we do start to see a little bit of that negative tilt come on, but it's not really a real strong negative tilt. Now, this pushes on out of here, according to the GFS, and here's that storm next week, almost like a bowling ball type situation where we have this big low pressure system at mid-levels starting to develop in the jet stream here, and that'll push off to the east, and you can see there yet another storm system in back of that. So I think we're starting to get, I shouldn't say get into an active pattern. We've been into an active pattern, and we're going to continue to stay there, I think, all the way through spring. Let's go on over. This is the trusty Euro model. You can see at this point, again, very quiet. There's that system that's starting to come on shore here to the west. Again, rain and snow out to the Pac Northwest here on Monday into Tuesday. This low starts to come through as we get into early Wednesday. Now, the Euro and the GFS were very similar yesterday. They had a pretty close solution. Today, they've kind of disagreed a little bit. I'm using actually last night's data. I'm not using 6Z data for the GFS or anything because I don't like cold runs. I don't like cold model runs. I like fresh model runs. So we're using the 0Z data, and you can see here's your 540 line. As we get into about 8 a.m. on Wednesday, this whole daylight savings thing is going to throw me off. But we have snow now falling basically across northern Indiana and northern Illinois, and probably a rain situation here across central Indiana, according to the Euro model. And I tend to agree with that. Now, that's my thought. I think here across I-70 we'll probably see some rain move in. That doesn't mean we won't see snow as this thing starts to pull out. In fact, the next model run, or the next model hour, shows a large developing low pressure system out here at 988 millibar low. We start to get this moisture really wrapping around, and as it does, this cold air filters in, so it's now snowing across a large majority of the state. So we'll just, again, we'll have to wait and see. It's always a wait and see game with these models. And this moves out again. There's that cold air filtering in behind it. A cold day on Thursday. Now, as we get into Friday here, we do start to see a warm up take place as a little clipper starts to ride through the northern portion of the United States. That'll help warm us up. And here's that storm next week that both models are actually picking up on. You can see the low down here across the Dixie Alley area, and possibly bringing snow down across Kentucky, even northern Tennessee, but we would actually miss out on this storm at that point. But again, it's over a week out. Snowfall forecast here from the European model. We'll get through this and take a look. You can see not a tremendous amount of snow. There's definitely some accumulation. Basically, I-70 northward, probably getting anywhere from 3 to 6 inches here. That's at a 10-to-1 ratio, so it could be a little bit more. But right now, not really looking at any kind of a major snowstorm. Now, when you've had snowstorms that have dumped, anywhere between 5 to 18 inches across the state, 6 inches doesn't seem like quite so much. But again, that's kind of the snowfall forecast from the Euro. Looking into next week, there's the heavier snow falling down here across the Appalachians, and so that looks to maybe miss us. We'll have to wait and see. Here, going on over to the 500 millibar pattern, you can see here's the system coming into the Central Plains, and then look at this big trough coming in here. This is by Wednesday. Again, even the Euro kind of hinting at that more positive to neutral tilted trough as the axis comes in here. That could change. I mean, we've seen these change many times, and then as it comes off to the northeast, it does take on more of that neutral or negative tilt, and we start to see a little bit of bridging out across the west, and another system coming in for next week. We'll take a look here at the Canadian model real quick, and you can see this system starts to come out across the plains, and this is I don't know, this is a little bit of a weird interpretation of the data. You can see a big kind of almost a broad low pressure system, almost like a wave coming through. It really keeps any kind of precip to a minimum here, and not really sure I agree with that one. I think this has the potential to be a pretty decent storm, And it looks like the Canadian may be underplaying this. Now, whether or not we see a lot of snow from this, that's a totally different question. But it looks to me like the Canadian is really underplaying this just for the simple fact that it's developing this kind of broad-looking low and not this well-defined low that the Euro and the GFS seem to be wanting to show. So anyway, that's kind of the premium discussion for the day. You definitely want to check back here over the next 24 to 48 hours and see what's going on. This is going to be another big storm system, I think, but whether we see rain or snow, that's going to be something that's going to be have to be determined kind of a later hour. So it'll be interesting to see what the 12Z GFS as well as the 12Z Euro says. So that's all we have today. Have a great Sunday. Have a great weekend.